Hello everyone, I'm here with Tristan Wade. He enjoys a good gamble. We're at the World Series of Poker. How's it going?
Going pretty good. Playing, winning, cashing. Not winning, but winning some money, cashing, you know. I'm getting there.
That is how it goes in poker tournaments. You have to realize that when you sign up. Usually you're going to lose a little or break even, but every once in a while, spike.
Yep.
But you have to get in there, put in volume, and stay sane. It sounds like you've been staying sane.
I'm trying to. I'm playing hands. That's what you got to do in poker. You got to play hands. So I'm trying to find a way to win a hand.
You got to get in there and battle. So let's see if you can win this hand today. You are playing a $1,000 buy-in Freezeout. Means only one entry. Very new for most people, where you can re-enter a million times. One time only, like the old school days.
Love it.
The good old days. I love it too.
Yeah.
All right. You raise it up with Queen Jack offsuit on the button out of your 38 big blind stack. Folds around to the big blind who calls. Fine and standard so far. You flop almost the nuts. 10-8-3. Opponent checks.
Pretty good, yeah. Pretty good flop. One correction though, we were on the cutoff.
Oh,
so
I can't read the board.
Changes ranges just a little bit. But yeah, I'm in the cutoff, and just to give a little bit of the table dynamics, table was pretty friendly. The big blind was a very good, experienced player in a field full of amateurs. So I just felt like, you know, when we get to the flop, maybe he's going to be a little more creative with check raises rather than your typical player in this field. So yeah, the flop comes 10-8-3. He checks to me, and I go with a bet, but my sizing was a little different here. I went with a little, like, half pot. Usually I go small or big in these spots, but against this opponent, I wanted to play a little bigger pot with this particular hand on this particular board, so that's why I sized up a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's also nice, I think in general, when you bet a little bit bigger, people will raise a little bit less often, I think. And you don't really want to get raised here. You'd rather them call or fold.
Right.
Right? And when you go bigger, that will make most people not raise. And especially in a freeze-out tournament, where you can't rebuy, you want to try to make people feel pressure for all their money, because that will make them overfold.
Yes. And there was one more very real dynamic we need to talk about too. We had just made the money.
Oh!
Just made the money a few hands prior. So we are right in the money. You know, the pressure has been alleviated for most of the field, because now they're like, yes, I got my money. And then this hand comes up.
Okay, so maybe this is a spot where the opponent's going to be getting after it a little bit. Because once you get in the money, the payout jumps are meaningless for a while. Right? And so if there's ever a time to get in there and battle pretty hard, medium stack against medium stack or big stack against big stack, this is it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, it's important to make sure you know all the dynamics, because whenever you review a generic hand, there's a lot of stuff going on. We have lots of stuff happening in this one. All right, you bet 15K. Opponent decides to put in the check raise to 45K. You have the queen high.
Queen high. Now, I have been studying these spots a little bit on these, you know, 10-8, 10-9 board textures with low cards and stuff. So that's why I went a little bit bigger on the flop, because, you know, I know naturally some of my bluffs here would be queen jack suited to maybe ship it on the flop over a re-raise with some backdoor equity with a gut shot with the overcards. And then I saw that there are some, you know, you can kind of mix that in with some of the offsuit hands in these spots. So that really went through my mind when I got check raised here, was, well, do I want to use this as one of my bluffs? I've now started to build a bigger pot. I think with the stack sizes here, it would be fine to just jam it. So that was a consideration, but we're never folding. You know, we bet here and we just at least have to see a turn card. So that's kind of what I alluded to calling the raise here.
Yeah, something a lot of people have very wrong about poker is they have queen high and they're behind, therefore they should fold. But you have to realize here, your opponent's range to check raise is going to be a lot of decently good made hands that you are behind, but that's going to be a lot of 10s, right? And against a 10, you have a solid 10 outs, which is not bad. And every once in a while, your opponent's going to be raising with some sort of a draw. And if you think about the draws that are available, we actually have one of the best draws, because we beat, Jack 7 suited. We also beat Jack 9, right? And these are all hands that they're going to call within the big blind and maybe get a little bit aggressive with.
And then
Queen 9 as well, right?
Queen 9, 7-9, 6-9 even. I was thinking, you know, I don't know if my opponent's always going to be in the mix with 6-9 offsuit, but 6-9 suited.
There's a lot of them available.
Yeah.
And we do block some of them, but at the same time, this is a spot where you're not just dead every time in drawing. A lot of people ask, how much equity do I have? And the answer is, you don't really know, because you don't really know what the opponent's range is, but you have to put 30 into a pot that's going to be a lot. I don't know how big the pot's going to be. Pot's going to be 123.
Yeah.
So are you going to realize 25% equity in position? And the answer is just yes.
Yeah.
You definitely will. So whatever, we call. Shoving's also reasonable, as your opponent will fold out more of their marginal made hands that check raise to a shove. Like, imagine you think they're check raising any pair, like 8-7 or something, then you definitely want to shove, because then they'll fold and you win the pot. But most good players are check raising more polarized, right?
Yeah.
And you said this is a good player. He's going to be check raising like 10s and better for the most part.
Yep.
And then draws, I have to presume.
Yeah.
Maybe some bottom pairs or something.
And also the bottom pairs are good check raises. And then the two pairs, like, he's mostly going to have 8-3 suited and 10-3 suited. He's not going to have the offsuit ones of those. So you can eliminate a lot of combos of value hands right there. So really it should be 10-8, 8-3, 10-3, which are suited. So, and then there's all those other draws that you mentioned. So that makes this hand really interesting when you get to the turn, because a lot of his value should just be 10x.
Correct. But then he decides to check.
Checks.
So this is an interesting spot, because what does your range look like? In his eyes, your range looks like a lot of pairs that have some showdown value, maybe some 10s, maybe some 8s, maybe like pocket 9s, maybe even over pairs if you decide to be a little bit tricky.
That's exactly what I was hoping he would think at the time. Yep.
And then also you're gonna have some draws, I would presume. So it's an interesting spot where I think he'd probably just want to bet most of the time with most of his range, because when he has a draw, he wants you to fold. And when he has a 10, he really doesn't want to let you draw for free or cheap. But he checks, so I don't know what's going on at this point.
And then you could even argue that I didn't play the hand that great because I decided to check back the turn. And that's not the best play here, more or less, because I only have queen high. I'm hoping my opponent just has a bluff give up, but if I check back the turn, I now give up the betting lead to my opponent again on the river. And now if they bet, what do I do?
Yeah, so the nice thing about your particular queen jack is that you beat all the draws. Anytime you have the best draw, whether it's like 10 high, because there's a bunch of low straight draws available, or like right here, queen high. Queen high is normally not good. But if your opponent is playing like kind of logical, you actually have a hand that beats all the draws. So even though we have queen high, we actually win a lot of the time. Now, the problem with that is that a lot of players are going to bet most of their draws on the turn, which means when they check the turn, now they have a lot of showdown value.
Right.
That's what I would presume is happening here. But that's not always going to be the case. Some people just check because they don't want to bet and then get jammed and have to fold out their draw, right? I mean, give them jack 9 or 9-7. They may not want to bet the turn and then have you ripping on them, and then they have to fold, and that would be terrible because they don't get to see the river. Instead, maybe they're checking, looking to check raise you, or just praying it goes check, check, and then they can bluff the river. So, weird spot where it's very important to know how your opponent plays, but obviously you can't know how your opponent plays. So I don't think you can definitively say your play was bad here. I think if you had something like 9-7, you should be way more inclined to bet, because then you can make them fold out queen high draws and stuff like that. But I think in this spot, because you beat all the draws, checking back's reasonable. And I would probably just check it down, really. I don't think you need to try to bluff this hand. Unless you think they're going to be check raising stuff like pocket 6s and then checking down, but that's not what good people do. So, depends on your opponent's tendencies.
Yeah, and I did think there was a possibility that my opponent was good enough, like you said, to check raise bottom pair and then just kind of go into shutdown mode once getting called. I also thought there was a chance that on this safe board, 10-8-3-5 rainbow, that some of their value hands could play tricky enough to try to go for a double check raise, which is a little wild, but this guy, I didn't put it past him because, you know, when you're good player against good player, you get into the like leveling wars, so I thought that could have been a spot. So that was another reason why I decided to check back the turn, because I didn't, you know, I was a little maybe uncomfortable, or I just was a little uncertain on how I wanted to play the turn, if I just wanted to jam all in for a little bit, 150% pot, or like you said, if I wanted to check and try to maybe, you know, beat all the draws that are out there.
Yeah, I think in general, in tournaments that are presumably somewhat soft, where everyone's throwing a party, you really don't want to go broke if you have the chance. And I probably would recommend underbluffing against good people who will just find hero calls. But, you know, you got to mix it up sometimes.
Yeah.
You can't never bluff.
Yeah.
All right, anyway, check turn.
Yep.
Opponent, river comes at 2. Kind of a blank, unless they had the random ace-4 suited that decided to get after it. And now they put in a pretty chunky bet of 100K into the 120K pot, leaving 60 behind. Kind of weird. Well, what do you think?
Yeah, well, you know, I think in the moment I alluded to the fact that I didn't think this person would check back a lot of their value on the turn. I think that's really what the conclusion I came to was, man, if they had a value hand, I really expect them to just keep betting. And I, you know, really thought, since all the draws you listed on the flop, the straight draws, the 7-9, the jack 9, the 6-9, the 7-9, all that stuff. I was just like, man, I really felt we were kind of weighted towards being bluff heavy in this particular spot against this opponent. And I really was torn because part of me thought about going all in on the river. Just maybe randomly getting some kind of better hand that check raised the flop to fold. And I didn't really know if I had the appropriate showdown value to make a hero call here.
Yeah, this is a weird one because as your opponent has more hands that beat you in their flop check raising range that we're going to give up but then decide to go for it now, you should perhaps be more inclined to put it in for 60k more only. I realize it's not a lot giving your opponent great odds, but if you give your opponent ace-3 or something, or 4-3, they're probably going to fold for 60k more. Yeah. Especially if you pretty confidently pop your money in, like, yep, got it, thank you.
Yep.
You know, if you do that kind of thing where you just rip it in quickly. And I don't know, like if you had maybe queen 9 or jack 9 here and you decide to make some insane hero call, you're probably better off shoving because you will get random 4-3 to fold, or maybe like king high, king jack that decides to check raise the flop.
I thought they could have had like king X of backdoor, like king 5 suited or something that just, you know, check raises as a bluff and then somehow has some equity, but then tries a bluff. You know, whatever. I wasn't sure. So
yeah, rough spot. I think you're probably best off jamming, although it feels really dirty giving them really good odds. But you have to realize anyone who's good, if the player's actually good, they're not just going to give away their last 60k. Sure, it's really unfortunate to have 10 big blinds left, but if in their mind they're dead because you just put your money in, like, yep, I got the straight or the set or whatever it is, you're in, then they're going to fold. I mean, I would easily fold here if I somehow bet with ace high or king high or bottom pair, or, you know, even a hand like 10-9, I'd be pretty sick about it.
Oh yeah.
It's a spot where I don't mind shoving. I think shoving's probably good unless you think the opponent is extremely polarized, like we talked about earlier, where they have either logical straight draws, which you beat, or value hands, which you're crushed by. Because in that spot you don't need to raise because now they don't have bottom pairs or king high, right? And I think most people I usually err towards thinking they have the very logical draws, straight draws in this case, as opposed to stuff like king 4 backdoor flush draw. But as your opponent is better and better, I think they will have more of those in their range, which means you probably need to go for the shove against them more than the regular player. Also, the nice thing about in this tournament is if you call and you have 10 big blinds left, you can spin it up.
That was what I kind of came to the conclusion of, you know, hey, I think my hand is probably good enough in this given scenario, given this particular player in this exact moment. I'm going to do something I don't really do. Queen high, okay, I call, hoping to not see some random 3 or random ace high or whatever. My opponent starts to sheepishly turn over the jack 9 offsuit. Ooh. And that's when I get up out of my chair and I let out a good scream.
You were excited about this.
I was very excited about this. Again, we had a fun table. We had Jamie Kersetter, a couple other people that were drinking, having fun. Everyone seemed pretty cordial and happy, and we had all just made the money. So I was fired up that I picked somebody off who tried to bluff me right after we made the money. Luckily, my opponent was pretty nice about it. He kind of laughed it off and said we need more emotion in poker. And, you know, he was probably pretty salty, but, you know, he did make a comment, well, if I go all in, do you call? And I think that's a pretty fair, you know, assessment either way. I mean, it all plays out the same, but that was a fun one. That was a fun one to be right on. And, yeah. That's all I gotta say.
Awesome. When you make hero calls with queen high, make sure you're right.
Yeah, don't be wrong. Don't be wrong. Because it could have easily went out the other way, and I could be just the idiot. But like you said, I would have had 10 big blinds left to spin up, so that would have made me feel better.
For sure. All right, that's gonna be it for today. Where can people follow you on the internet to learn more from you?
Yep. Twitter, Instagram, PokerCoaching, Tristan Wade, Tristan Creative.
We'll put some links below.
Yeah.
All right. Have a great day. If you enjoyed this video, click the like and subscribe buttons down there. Check out Tristan. Click the notification bell. Click all the buttons. It lets the computer overlords know that you like this. And that's it. Goodbye.